This Scotch Broth soup has been around for more than 200 years. With its origin in Scotland, it's recognized as Scotland's national soup. In fact, the nickname given is the pot-au-feu of Scotland. It's a slow braised lamb soup and it is jam-packed with veggies, fall off the bone lamb, and tender cooked barley. Now, because of its rich history and flavor, it's probably one of my favorite soups of all time, and I can't wait to make it with you. We're going to be doing it in partnership with my friends over at the American Lamb Board. Sound good? Let's cook. It doesn't matter if it's ground lamb, a leg of lamb, a loin chop, tenderloin rack, or better yet, these lamb shanks. This is one of my all-time favorite things to cook and eat. It's an incredibly lean protein, and the flavor that comes from it is absolutely outstanding. Now, I first learned about Scotch Broth when I was working for one of my favorite chefs, Daniel Pliska, back at the University Club. I had all this leftover lamb, had no clue what to do with it. Chef was like, hey, why don't you make Scotch Broth? And I was like, yeah, what's Scotch Broth? So he explained that it was this lamb soup with barley and veggies, gave me some instructions, sent me on my way, and I made it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. We are going to start this off by seasoning up 2 lamb shanks with a little bit of salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Now, you know my school of thought. Be about a foot away from what you are seasoning so that you can cover every little square centimeter so every bite is absolutely delicious. Be sure to get both sides with salt and pepper. I'm heading over to a large rondeau pot. Now, I've got about 3 tablespoons of lard. You can also use your favorite oil or ghee. Let's crank the heat to high, get that lard smoking. Next, we're going to add in our lamb shanks. Be sure not to crowd the pan too bad. We want to sear these, not steam them. It's going to take about 3 minutes per side or until perfectly golden brown on all sides. It does not need to be cooked through, okay? We're not looking to do that here, but take the time to do that. I mean all sides of this lamb. Just going to further add to the flavors and complexity of this Scotch broth. At this point, we're just going to lay the lamb down to create a little bit of room. Next, I'm going to add in about 12 cups of beef stock. You could use chicken stock, you could use water, or if you have lamb stock, even better. Now we want to season this liquid up very well with salt and fresh cracked black pepper. Now the reason we're doing this is because it's kind of further enhance the flavor of the lamb when it's braising, but also this is the liquid of our soup. So guess what? Be sure to grab a spoon and taste it. See if it needs any more seasoning. This one is good to go. Let's add a lid on it. Let's turn the heat down to low medium and cook it until it falls off the bone. Now, Comies, we obviously have a few hours for that lamb to braise and cook down so that it's fall off the bone and super tender. But this is great timing because we can get started on our barley, our split peas, and of course, we can start prepping up our vegetables. So don't go too far for too long. So after about an hour of the lamb cooking, we are going to come add 1 cup of pearl barley to a strainer. Next, I'm just going over to the sink. What I want to do is just rinse this really well, get anything out of there that maybe came in the package that I don't want. Next, we're going to take all that goodness, put it in a medium-sized pot. I've got 2 2/3 cup water. You could also use stock when cooking this barley. Let's give it a quick season up with salt. Crank the heat up to high. The goal here is to bring this to a boil just like this. Going to give it a really quick stir just to infuse all the flavors and salts, make sure everything is good to go. Let's turn the heat down to low, add a lid on it. What we're going to do is cook this for 20 minutes. I'm going to come back. The goal here is for this barley to be tender, not mushy, should be chewy. That's when we know we are good. Let's strain it, give it a quick shake, get all the excess liquid off of here. Now what I want to do is cool it, and the easiest and best way I know how is to get it as thin layer as possible. So we're going to spread it out on a plate just like this. Now what I'm going to do is pop it in the refrigerator. It's probably only going to take about 30 minutes or so for this to completely cool down. And now we're going to do the exact same thing with those split peas. I promise you there is a method to my madness, but you got to hold on. I can't show you until we get to the end and plate it up. Adding 1 cup of split peas to a strainer, going to give them a really quick rinse right under cold water, very similar to the process of cooking the barley. Give it a quick shake, going over to a small or medium-sized pot. Get all those good peas in there. Next, I'm going to add in 2 cups of water. Again, you could also use stock. Give it a season with salt. Crank the heat to high. Bring this beast to a boil. When it gets to that stage, let's give it a quick mix. Again, I like to make sure all those flavors are infused and the salt is dissolved in the water. Add a lid, turn the heat down to low. This one is going to take 25 minutes to finish cooking, and boom. This is perfect. We don't want mush, okay? We want tender split peas. I don't want pea soup. What we've got here is perfect. Let's give it a strain, give it a quick shake. Again, we want to get this in as thin layer as possible so it cools as quickly as possible, just like the barley. Spread it out all over the plate. We are going into the refrigerator, probably only going to take 30 minutes again to cool, even though we have plenty of extra time to get started on everything else. It's time to move to the next phase, which is prepping up our vegetables. The lamb looks great. It's got about 45 minutes or so left. We're first going to start off with some leeks and onions. We're going to get those caramelizing, and we can prep up everything else, but I want to get that rolling. When it comes to leeks, they say to only use the white part of it, but you can go up a little higher. First thing we do is just slice up the end, and I go right to where it begins to turn yellow, all right? Right here. Next, what I do, slice it in half, okay? Then what we do is thinly slice it. I'm only going to use one. This one's huge, so. If you have two smaller leeks, use that. Should be fine. Just thinly slice them. Does not have to be perfect. And guess what? Leeks can be very dirty and muddy. So we're going to add them to a strainer and give them a rinse in water. I feel like I'm a broken record on repeat with the barley, the peas, now with the leeks. Give them a shake. We're just going to set them to the side. Next, I have one yellow onion. I'm going to slice it in half, remove the outside peel, and then small to medium dice them. Again, size does not have to be perfect. I'm going to add them right on top of the leeks because guess what? We're cooking them together. Got a separate large pot, 2 tablespoons of lard. Again, you could use oil or ghee. Let's crank the heat to medium. Going to add in our leeks and onions and start to stir them. What we're looking to do is get these nice and brown. You know, I believe caramelizing onions in soup can just take the flavors over the top, and this one is no different. And like I said, this is great timing to prep up all the other vegetables while the onions are browning up. But you have to remember, when this recipe was created hundreds of years ago, so much of what was in it depended on seasonality and what was available. So there may be some nuances, there may be some things you could swap out or substitute and still be totally authentic. Here's what I'm going to use. Cabbage, potatoes, turnips, carrots, and celery. What I'm going to do is just rip off a few ribs of celery, probably going to do 5 here, give them a quick rinse, and then we are going to medium to large dice them. Does not have to be perfect. Next, I've got 5 carrots. We're going to peel them. Remember those peelings, save them in the freezer later for stock at another date. Same thing, medium to large dice up these carrots. Then I've got 1 ginormous turnip, or as the Scots would call it, a neep. Very classic to use in this soup. But this turnip is massive, so I'm only going to use half of it. And I'm going to medium to large dice that as well, adding it to the bowl with the carrots and celery. Then 1 head of green cabbage, slicing in half, slicing it in half again. Just want to shave down that stem, and then we just want to cut this into roughly large pieces. However you do that is totally fine. Also, if you can't get a hold of green cabbage, Savoy cabbage would work, or kale would also be a very traditional ingredient to use. After you've large diced them, add them to the same bowl. I've got 2 russet potatoes, quick peel, medium to large dice. Again, broken record here. I've got 5 garlic cloves. This is the Italian side of me coming in to add a little bit more flavor to this recipe. Give it a fine mince. Take this over along with our vegetables to our pot. Let's have a look at our onions. Starting to get nice and brown. The smells are fantastic. Next, let's just add in the garlic. You know when it comes to cooking garlic, once it's fragrant, it's done cooking. This should only take about a minute or so. Mix all this in, then grab those vegetables. Let's pour all of that goodness in there. Now, another couple of vegetables you could add would be a rutabaga or parsnip, or you can swap some things out if you'd like. We're just going to cook this for about 5 to 6 minutes on low to medium heat, because guess what? Let's go check out our lamb. It is finished. It looks fantastic. As you can see, it is falling off the bone. So what we do need to do is take the lamb out of here and put it on a plate and get all the lamb. You may have to go fishing a little bit again, because it is falling right off of there. What we want to do next is chop it up. All right, this part is a little bit tricky because what we want to do is remove the meat from the bones. Now you're going to need some tongs and a knife, obviously, and just scrape everything right off. It should fall right off in theory because, well, we cooked it for like 3 hours. But it's going to be hot, and the meat is going to be hot as well. So when you're done scraping it off, you can trim away any fat from it that you didn't want, like that outside but I'm fine with that little cap out there. I think it's gonna add some flavor. And we're just gonna roughly chop it. This part does not need to be perfect at all because guess what? It's gonna break down even more when it cooks with our soup. I'm just gonna transfer it over to a plate to make it really easy to transport right back to our soup. Let's have a look. All right, the vegetables are starting to tenderize. This is great. Let's add in our chopped up lamb and do not forget our braising liquid. This is pure gold right here, loaded with delicious lamb flavor. Add that in there. You may need to add 3 or 4 cups more of stock or water, depending on how much soup you want to make. Next, what we're going to do is cook this over low to medium heat. It's going to take about 20 minutes to get those vegetables nice and tender. And I'm telling you, there's no need to put any herbs or bay leaves or anything in there. Let all those flavors marry with the lamb. I'm telling you, the cabbage, the turnip, all those things. It's going to be so good. We're just going to cook this right until the vegetables are tender, then we're going to finish it up. Come back after that amount of time, give it a quick stir, taste the vegetables, make sure they are at the perfect consistency, not crunchy, not mushy, perfect. Let's add in a 1/4 cup of chopped fresh parsley. Let's season up well with salt and pepper. Season once, taste twice. Taste it, season it, taste it again. Does it need more? Is it perfect? This one, my friends, is dang sure good to go. You have to follow this recipe exactly because the timing of it is beautiful. From when we sear the lamb to all the prep we do in between to when the lamb is finally cooked, it's like 20 more minutes after that, and it's all done. It's amazing, and the flavor is fantastic. All right, for the method to my madness when it comes to the barley and the split peas, the reason I keep them separate is because the barley will soak up so much more of that liquid, and you're going to have like gruel. And the split peas, they're going to break down more, and you're going to have, well, split pea soup. That's not what I want. I want to taste those vegetables. I want a little bit of that crunch and tenderness to them. That's why I do it. And it's always about these techniques. I always tell you, doing things like that, searing that lamb, all of those, put them together, practice them over and over again, and will absolutely elevate your everyday cooking. All right, here's how we plate this beauty up. I'm going to add in a 1/4 cup of our chilled barley right to the bowl that I'm serving it in. Same thing goes with a 1/4 cup of our chilled split peas. Do not worry. That soup is so hot, it is going to bring up the temperature of the barley and peas. You won't even know they are chilled. Add on several ladles of our Scotch Broth soup, and then finish it up with a little fresh chopped parsley. Does it take a few extra steps to make this delicious? Yes. But is it worth it? 100%. I think you and your family are going to love this. Now, if you love lamb, you have to check out my leg of lamb recipe. The flavor in that thing is incredible. I've got an awesome recipe video. I'll see you on there.